Alrighty, well, welcome everybody. My name is Jerome Havliana. I am a licensed professional counselor associate.
And I am Tamika Franklin. I'm a licensed professional counsel supervisor. And today we're going to provide a webinar and educate you on parent management training by the founder, Alan Caston. So we are excited about this to present this information to you. Hopefully it is resourceful and some really good education for you. We would love to have you a part of our process with this parent group. So my specialty is working with children and families with behavior issues. I thoroughly enjoy it. So first, I'd like to start by going over some questions, just in case you're wondering if PMT is appropriate for your family. Are you having challenges building a healthy, respectful relationship with your child or children? Is your child challenging directives within or outside of the home? And in regards to outside of the home, I'm referring to a school setting or athletic activities as well. Do you or your child have challenges regulating your emotions? The reason we are indicating you as in the parent because it is or can be stressful and anxiety provoking and frustrating when you have a child or children who consistently test boundaries and consistently have dysregulated emotions. So it can be. So we want to be sensitive and responsive to parents' needs as well as the child's needs. And are you questioning how to parent a strong-willed child? So we're not labeling strong-willed children as good or bad. They can just be strong-willed. Just be very specific about it. I have found that an authoritarian parenting style and strong-willed children typically butt heads. I have yet to see it as effective. So if you're questioning whether your parenting style may be authoritarian, and notice your child's reactions with that specific parenting style. And if your answer is yes to any of these questions, then parent management training may be an appropriate treatment for you and your family. So these are some typical goals, and I'm basing it on the research that has been founded from parent management, but also my actual practical practice and session with families. The number one goal is to reduce unwanted physical and or verbal aggression. I strongly recommend if there is physical aggression, we definitely want to address that first in regards to safety for the child and the family. I do see some individuals with physical aggression. Again, we want to tackle that first before we get into anything else. Verbal aggression, I do see that more often than physical aggression. So again, we want to address that firsthand. Increasing parent and child emotion regulation. Really important. If you have a dysregulated child and the parent is also dysregulated, it typically increases that unwanted behavior versus decreasing the unwanted behavior. As we know, children are typically going to model what they see their caregiver do. So we want to make sure that we're addressing the parent and the child's emotion regulation abilities. Increasing compliance from a child. What that looks like is compliance with chores, compliance with attending events, compliance with homework. Any area of compliance, you want to address that. Again, if those unwanted behaviors are consistent and it impacts daily functioning. Improve parent-child relationship. I am very, very big on working with parent and child together. That is the goal within our company as a whole, is to rebuild and help navigate healthy parent-child relationships. So even though parent management training is parent-driven, the goal is for the parent and child to unify in a healthy way. Improve pro-social behavior is really important, helping the parent and the child to be able to navigate relationships better, to improve their social skills inside and outside of the home. And as you see this image here, I'm going to look at it as parents and their two children and potentially grandparents. The reason this is there because it impacts the entire unit. And I have worked with families who the grandparents have difficulty keeping or watching their grandchildren because of the unwanted behavior. So it not only impacts the immediate family, but it impacts the extended family as well. So these are some examples of unwanted behaviors that have been research-based. And again, I have also seen these behaviors in the setting as well. working with families. Verbal and physical aggression, as I mentioned earlier, we want to address the physical aggression first for safety reasons. Defiance inside or outside of the home, children telling their parents what they will and will not do, testing boundaries, being very direct with that, and adamant about not complying with the parent would be defiance. Non-compliance, again, like I mentioned, school, even school attendance, completion of schoolwork, completing chores, and even bathing. I have worked with quite a few families, and the child or children are non-compliant with bathing, or brushing their teeth is another non-compliance that I often see. So, in regards to hygiene, is something that we can work with a parent and their child on as well. Teasing and bullying, typically seen mostly with siblings. Of course, it can occur outside of the home as well, but working with families and decreasing teasing and bullying within their sibling relationship, with the understanding that siblings will bicker with one another, but we just want to make sure that it's not a persistent behavior and it doesn't escalate. Whining and tantrums, definitely have seen this a lot in session with parents. The most frustrating experience that parents have had is when it is in a public setting. Parents are typically embarrassed that their child is behaving this way after being told no, or they're not getting their way about something. And here comes the tantrum. Sometimes it can go as far as the parent having to leave the store because the child was unable to regulate their emotions. So I'll see that quite often. So PMT sessions, there are 12 sessions. Every parent doesn't need all 12 sessions because the last 10 to 12, as you see, is negotiating, compromising. And that's typical for the older individuals versus the younger individuals. So you have your positive opposite and prompting, positive reinforcement, and charts. So charts mean that we would work with the parent to devise a behavioral plan. And the goal is to increase wanted behaviors is the goal of the behavioral plan. And it has to be consistent. So we have two that we can work with you with: a point chart for older individuals, and then we have a star chart for younger individuals. Again, we help you be very specific with those behaviors, what that looks like. And the child is a part of the process when it comes to rewards. They aren't a part of the process when it comes to describing the behaviors to change. Come out, Jerome will go into more detail about that, along with ignoring and attending, shaping, keep using the positive opposite for PMT section 6. Again, he'll go over a positive opposite as well. Session 7, we're just reviewing the skills that have already been learned. Low rate behaviors mean addressing those behaviors like verbal and physical aggression that we'll go over in quite detail. Reprimand, Jerome will address that as well. And then again, 10 to 12 is about negotiating and compromising with older individuals. All right, now I will turn it over to Jerome.
All righty. So what I'm going to be talking about are a few skills that we will be learning in these PMT sessions together. So, so to start, I'll talk a little bit about ignoring, and just simply as it sounds is, as parents, ignoring is a strategy that we use to stop an unwanted behavior from happening by withholding any type of reinforcement and attention from the child. So different ways in which we can practice ignoring would be looking away, moving away, not engaging in any type of facial expressions, because even our facial expressions can provide a reinforcement for the child. Not talking to the child, ignoring any requests that they have, and simply leaving the room. It can even go as far as just reading a magazine, looking on your phone. With ignoring, again, the idea is that over time, the child sees that they're not going to be gaining any attention by their caregiver, ignoring. They're not going to gain attention from their caregiver by continuing the unwanted behavior like Tamika was talking about with the tantrums, the whining, any insults. And so with ignoring, the idea is to extinguish the unwanted behavior. Most of the time, some parents will say that, oh, I've tried ignoring, but if anything, it actually made the behavior a lot worse, right? And so they stop doing it. But actually, that's quite known as an extinguished burst, where the behavior actually escalates a little bit more. And, what's really important is in those moments is to practice patience and to really hold out. And hopefully in that little time in which the child stops engaging in the unwanted behavior, then we can give the child attention of what they need because they stopped doing what it is that we didn't want, right? However, when it comes to ignoring behaviors, we don't want to ignore behaviors in which it can be a safety hazard for the client and other people. So that is when you actually attend to the child's behavior in that moment and properly intervene, which is what we'll go over during these sessions. So ignore until it becomes unsafe for the child and others. Now, going on to positive opposites, that really focuses on our semantics and how we talk with our children, right? So positive opposites would be a redirection is redirecting the child with our words into the behavior that we want. We want to get them away from the undesired behavior. So if you look at the flow chart, there is a side for non-positive opposites and positive opposites, right? So some examples of non-positive opposites would be stop running in the house, don't yell at your sibling, stop rushing through your schoolwork, right? A positive opposite would be, from each of these statements would be, please walk in the house using calm steps. Please talk to your sibling in a calm voice. Take your time and focus carefully on each question, right? So if you notice in the non-positive opposite side, it's using words like stop, don't, and no. And research backs up showing that whenever we use those words, the stop, don't, and no, it actually escalates the child's behavior, the unwanted behavior that we're trying to extinguish and get rid of, right? But the research shows that with positive opposites, children are more compliant to engage in wanted behaviors when they're being told what the correct behavior is that they need to engage in. Positive opposites are very specific too, so they know what to do in order to receive the reinforcement praise. So positive opposites work really on their semantics. So going into reinforcement and punishment, I will talk about what distinguishes both of these together because there really are differences between the two, between a reinforcement and a punishment, right? So kind of just going from left to right, positive reinforcement. So that would be adding a desirable stimulus after a behavior to increase the likelihood of that behavior occurring again. So in other words, we are adding something pleasant because the child engaged in an appropriate behavior that we want to help them continue, right? So if you look at this picture, a positive reinforcement would be a family, praising their child for, either I'm going to see it as her completing her homework, right? So positive reinforcements can be praises, but then it can also be things that are, material privileges. We'll go over more of those in the next slide, but we're reinforcing the positive behavior that they exhibited, and we do want them to continue going forward. Moving over to the right, we have negative reinforcements. So we are removing an aversive stimulus after a behavior to increase the likelihood of that behavior occurring again, right? So what we're doing is we are removing something unpleasant that we didn't want there to begin with after we did said behavior, right? And if you kind of just look at this, parenting aside, like in an everyday life, we're filled with negative reinforcements everywhere, right? Like whenever we start driving without our seat belts, right, our car is probably going to start beeping, or we have like an indicator on the dashboard that won't go away until we buckle up. The beeping won't stop until we buckle up, right? So until we buckle up, that beeping and light are going to be removed, right? It's the removal of something that we didn't really want there to begin with. So I chose this picture because some of us when we were little probably had parents that stood in like a very disapproving stance, and they stood there to indicate that we needed to take out the trash, wash the dishes, right? Sometimes they might even stand in front of the TV until we did the said tasks. But until we do it, they won't stand there anymore, right? Until the child does their dishes or chores, then they won't stand there anymore, right? Even with verbal requests, like um, repeating repeating requests to go take out the trash, right? Can you take out the trash? Can you take out the trash? Can you take out the trash? But until the child does it, then we stop, then we remove it, right? We stop asking them to because they already did it, right? Going over to the bottom left, we have punishments or positive punishment. And so that would be adding an aversive stimulus after a behavior to decrease the likelihood of that behavior occurring again. And there are many ways in parenting in which we use positive punishment. We would be some parenting uses adding chores whenever they misbehave, right? Um, you pushed your friend to the ground, so now you're going to be doing extra chores around the house to make up for it. Timeouts, just like we talked about, are a form of positive punishment because we're adding something unpleasant that the child needs to do. And then some parents use physical punishments as a form of positive punishment in order to stop the behavior from happening again. But moving over to the right, we have negative punishment. So that would be removing a desirable stimulus after a behavior to decrease the likelihood of that behavior occurring again. So this would be removing something that the child values a lot in order for them to not engage in that behavior anymore. So with teenagers and their curfew times, right? Let's say they come home past curfew, and they're 30 minutes past curfew, and because of that, they have to hand over their keys now, and they've lost their driving privileges for the week, right? So we're removing something valuable from the teen, even simply as giving them their phone, right? We're removing pleasant things, and these are forms of negative punishment. Now, a quick note here between the differences between reinforcement and punishment is that punishments actually don't improve behavior over time. It's actually reinforcements that are key in helping our children engage in wanted behavior. Punishment actually doesn't develop, the habit of engaging in the wanted behaviors over time. Okay. Now, kind of just going back to my in relation to, let's say, positive reinforcements, right? We have, 4 types of reinforcers. So for one, we have social. So that requires like some form of social interaction, right? So social reinforcers could be simple as praises like, "Oh, honey, you did amazing. That was really good. Good job. I'm proud of you for doing that." Right. So those are social reinforcers, and they can also be nonverbal too, like high fives and hugs to let them know that they engaged in the wanted behavior, right? Tokens, so kind of like a token economy, so to say. So kind of like those behavioral plans that Tamika was talking about, involve a form of documentation for the child in which they engage in a wanted behavior. And when I say documentation, it can be as simple as a sticker chart, a jar full of marbles every time that they do a wanted behavior. For older children, like Tamika said, we could do it's like a more of a point system that works better for them. But the idea is that the stickers and the marbles and the tickets that they get, there is a specific reason why they are earning it. The child knows that this is what I need to do in order to get said sticker. And so over time, like as they accumulate all these tokens, right, they can actually use these tokens for certain privileges that are really, really important to them. So speaking of privileges, a privilege is also a type of reinforcer too, and those would be activities that are very meaningful for the child. So it could be simply the child gets to pick the family movie night whenever they go out to the movies. They are a privilege can also be seeing their friend not in a school setting, right? It could be simply as going to a sleepover, a party that a friend might be having, right? Materials are tangible things that are meaningful to the child. So if your child enjoys like video games, and you have another child that enjoys makeup, like material things that also would have meaning to them. Now, these are 4 different types of reinforcers, and each of them might have different meanings to your child. Like one might work more than the other, right? So we would spend a whole session in here together just thinking about the different reinforcers and rewards that would help the child engage in the wanted behaviors that we want them. The reinforcers have to be reinforcing enough for them to keep engaging in those wanted behaviors that we are looking for. Okay. So with timeouts, just like we said, this would be an intervention where we're temporarily removing the child away from a reinforcing environment after a problematic behavior has happened, right? And there are just a few things we can keep in mind with timeouts. Kasdan believes that timeouts can be effective if we implement them immediately following the problematic behavior, right? And with the behavior, we identify why it is, and we identify the reasons why they are going into a timeout. We use them consistently for specific behaviors that they have engaged in that we don't want, like I said. We can keep the timeouts very short too. So there is a myth in which the length of the timeout has to correlate to the age of the child. It does not have to be the case here. They can be very brief. In here, I put 1 to 5 minutes, but it can actually be as little as 2 minutes that can be effective. Whenever you administer a timeout, just being sure to give the instruction calmly in a very neutral tone without any scolding or lecturing added to it. And the timeout area has to be free from distraction. So the timeout cannot be their bedroom, right? It has to be a very neutral environment, like a corner, like a blank space, like where they cannot be in a room that provides all these reinforcements for them. Okay. And reprimands. So as earlier, like when I was talking about before, ignoring behavior, we ignore behaviors until they become a danger toward the child or toward other people, right? So a reprimand would simply be verbal corrections or negative statements made to a child in response to an undesirable behavior. So a reprimand is signaling our disapproval as parents. So when we think about ways in which we formulate reprimands, we say what to stop, why to stop, and what to do instead. And so, for this example, I used a positive opposite in the first one of, Joe, I would like you to hold onto your toys. Because let's say in this context that Joe was throwing his toys like everywhere. But you would say, Joe, I would like you to hold on to your toys. You can break them. I want you to play gently with your toys. Or put them away, right? These 3 factors these are the 3 factors presented in the reprimand, like what to stop and why to stop and what to do instead. And so the skills that I just talked about just now, these are not all the skills that are going to be done in PMT. We're going to be talking more about these in depth, but these are just some of the topics that would be covered in the PMT sessions.
So we hope that you have enjoyed this brief concept of PMT. We are excited about it. We would love to have you. We are anticipating to start this at the beginning of the new year with the date of the time of 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We will utilize all that time wisely. We do prefer in person, but we're open to virtual participation as well, starting as early as 4 years old. I've worked with parents with children as early as 4 years old with some of these behaviors, specifically in the whining and tantrum unwanted behaviors. So again, parents only. or legal guardian of that child, whomever that may be, and you have the address there for us. We have 2 locations, but this specific location would be for the PMT location, the Spring Cypress location. So you have the number there to contact our client coordinator. If you need any additional information, you can contact us directly, or you can contact the client coordinator or our group coordinator. Any of us will be happy to help you get set up with these PMT skills. And I've also added the resource. This is the website specifically for Alan Casden, the founder of Parent Management Training. Valuable resources on the page on his website there. So if you need anything additional that we didn't go over in this brief webinar, we'll be happy to direct you there. Again, I'm Tamika Franklin. I'm a licensed professional counsel supervisor.
Alrighty, and I am Jerome Havliana, licensed professional counselor associate, being supervised by Tamika, and we wish you a happy holiday and hope to hear from you soon.